Welcome to episode 150 of the Sports Marketing Machine podcast powered by Revelocity Sports, the show designed to help you sell more tickets and grow your fan base. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. Today I want to talk about something that's happening to almost every single team out there. If you're a sports team, you're spending money on meta ads, Google, display, television, print. You're spending money marketing, and there's a good chance you think you know what's working, but you don't actually trust the numbers. I mean, if you really look at it, you don't actually trust the numbers because there's a lot of things happening. You see reports from Meta and all these different platforms that are telling you a lot of different things. And honestly, that's not your fault. Marketing today is multi-touch, multi-device, and full of guesswork, especially when you're relying on platforms to report things and explain things how ticket sales happened. But really, it's not as crystal clear as we would like. It's about as clear as mud, truth be told. So today, I want to simplify things, not by turning you into a data scientist, but really give you a simple, practical framework for tracking your marketing in a way that actually makes sense for sports teams. I'm going to lean heavily into meta ads just for this episode because most teams, well, they use meta to push out social media content, but also it's one of the big paid channels that they have. So this episode is all about how you track your marketing results when, well, Meta's reports don't always line up with ticketing realities. I've got two episodes that I'm going to call out that connect to this. So let's get started. So this episode is really all about marketing and metrics, specifically in Meta, because Meta is going to tell you a different story than what's actually hitting your bank account and your ticketing software. So I recently published a few different episodes, episode 147 about the meta ad strategies that are working in 2026, and then episode 135 is really the simplest way to build and justify a marketing budget. This episode is really to take those two, what's really happening with Meta and what's working this year and how you're doing your budget, and tie everything together. All right, so we're talking about Meta and why the Meta metrics and the ticketing metrics don't match. So Meta can receive purchase information. If you're new to the podcast, you've never heard this before, I'm going to explain something super technical, but for a second, just bear with me here. Meta has something called Conversion API, or CAPI for short. Conversion API is something that you can put on your website or your ticketing software that says, hey, we can track when a conversion takes place. We can see that Jeremy went through and purchased tickets to your game, and it will flow through a conversion API. They can connect and see all of that information, and it gets flown in through your ticketing software or the back end of your website and what have you. So, right, we are spot on. Meta can see purchases when you are sending the data. So if you have the conversion API connected to your ticketing software and it's flowing in, Meta can see all day long that it is seeing that people are making purchases. But Meta is not reading your ticketing system like an accountant. Meta is doing the matching job. So here's what's actually happening. So you're running an ad on Facebook and Instagram. Someone sees the ad, they clicks it, or someone views the ad, and later, a day, 2 days later, they go in and buy a ticket. Your ticketing system sends that data back through CAPI, that conversion API. So Facebook and Instagram, so Meta is getting the email, the phone number, the name of the person, the transaction, the amount, whatever information is flowing back into it. Meta will then take that data and try to match it with a buyer that they know inside of their database. But here's the problem. It's not a perfect match. It's not a perfect science because in real life, people use different emails. So my email that I use for my Facebook page is different than the Gmail address that I'm using now. Apple has these privacy things, so they're relaying emails that they made up in purchases and what have you. Someone could see the ad on desktop but buy on mobile. They are using ad blockers on their computer. Credit cards' names don't match social profiles. Like, a lot of things can happen. My wife could see it. She tells me to go buy it, but I never saw the ad. So, like, as you can see, it's not a perfect science. Meta is trying to match the information and provide you with, hey, here's how many buyers we have based on the ads that we're running that is flowing through from CAPI, from the conversion API. Sometimes it's going to be spot on. Other times it's going to be off, right? All of that is normal behavior. So Meta has some real data, super powerful. But then it fills in the gaps with people that are like, well, maybe I think potentially this person is this person, with what is called modeled data. So some weeks they're going to be really spot on, and some weeks way off. And that's why teams feel confused. When you're looking at your metadata, you're looking in there, you're like, gosh, this isn't making any sense. I know I got more sales, or I got less sales than what they're reporting. Like, this is not making any sense. Really, the source of truth is your ticketing software and your bank account. All said and done, like, hands down, that's it. Whatever's in your bank account, whatever tickets have been sold to your ticketing software, that's the source of truth, right? So the big idea that I want to share here is this conversion API in the back end of Meta will help with optimization, but not reporting. This is one of the most important things to understand here in 2026. The conversion API is extremely valuable because it helps Meta's machine learning do its job. It will improve its learning, its targeting, its optimization, and stability. So the conversion API can absolutely make your campaigns perform better. But here's the misunderstanding. And this is the piece where I hope that you take away from this to say, hey, I know Meta's reporting is wrong. It's not as accurate, but it's at least giving me information here. Better signals does not equal perfect reporting. So regardless if Meta's getting all of this information, they're learning about who's buying, they're improving their targeting, they're improving their optimization and stability. All of that is great, but it does not equal perfect reporting. You see, the CAPI, the conversion API, can make the engine run better while your dashboard, your data still isn't perfectly accurate. Let me give you an analogy to think about this. CAPI, the conversion API, and the reporting in Meta is kind of like the weatherman. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. He's going to say, hey, you're going to get between 4 and 12 inches of snow today or tomorrow. Well, great. We know we're going to get some snow, but the only way to know how much snow you actually got is to walk outside and stick your ruler in the snow. Simple as that, right? So the conversion API and the metrics out of Meta, it's just like a weatherman. They're going to give you a range, but really the only way to truly know is to go out there and measure the snow yourself, right? So all that being said is Conversion API helps Meta optimize. Your ticketing system, your bank account will tell you the truth. That's the distinction that most teams miss. They're relying heavily on the metrics that Meta is sharing without taking a look at what's actually happening in your ticketing software to see if the numbers are jiving. The numbers are correct. Meta is absolutely helping you drive demand, but they are not keeping the score of what's actually happening. All right, so when Meta's making the shift here, this is even more important. And this is where episode 147 that I recently released, and I'll put a link in the show notes, and that's all about the strategies in 2026 because Meta is now more automated more than ever. So in that episode, I kind of broke everything down. Meta has completely changed. Interest targeting isn't as sharp, and they're deprecating a lot of the targeting that they used to have in there. A lot of those are disappearing. Lookalikes aren't as reliable as they used to be. The algorithm is really learning more from behavior and creative than targeting. So in simple terms, Meta is better at finding buyers than it is at explaining who bought. That's a delivery source. It's a place where you're placing ads. It's similar to like a display ad or what have you. It's just another channel where you're reporting and you're getting metrics. It's not always going to tell you what's correct, but it's another place for you absolutely to be able to deliver your message, your ad to a audience that potentially would consume the content. So your job isn't really to argue with Meta's reporting. Your job is to build a better measurement system so that it works when data is fuzzy, because it is, connects directly to the revenue in your bank account, what your ticketing software says, that really supports the decision-making process. And then it keeps you from making emotional changes from week to week. And I've seen this happen all the time. Teams will pop in there and go, gosh, these numbers don't look good. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And it really disrupts the motivation, the movement that you see with the ticketing software, collecting data and selling tickets and what have you. It really disrupts it. And I think I've brought up this analogy before. It's kind of like those M&Ms at the grocery store. How many times have we walked past them? Hundreds, thousands probably, right? We look at them, we see them. Sometimes we buy them, sometimes we don't. But like, what gets the credit? Is it the credit the last time? Is it the first time I saw it? Like, it's the same exact thing. Another analogy with this one is you've got a fan who is driving to work and they hear your radio ad. They get to work and they're working, and then at their lunch break, they're scrolling on Instagram. They see your ad. They're driving home. They see your billboard, and then they get home and they see your email, and then they go online and buy tickets. Well, who gets credit for all of that? Was it the first thing, the radio spot? Was it the last one because of the email? Like, all of it works together to help move tickets. So if you are simply reporting, well, Meta did this, or Instagram did this, or or my email did this, unless you have clear-cut, concise tracking, like putting it all into a vacuum, you're really losing the understanding of what's actually happening with your marketing. It doesn't work in a vacuum. Everything supports each other. So let me give you now what I would provide as the simple framework. You could do this in a spreadsheet. You could do this wherever you want, but really this is a simple system that I would recommend to sports teams. Not complicated, does not get you all caught up in attribution, just a real world framework that you could simply run in a spreadsheet just by looking at your data. So if you're very simplistic, this is the easy way to do it. You don't need Ads Manager. If you've got Google Analytics 4, GA4 set up, that's great, but you really don't need that for this simplicity. There are definitely other opportunities to set all this stuff up. You don't need reported conversions. You really just need the ticketing truth. You need the revenue, the number of buyers, and the dates that you're looking for. If it didn't hit the ticketing system, it doesn't count as a sale. I love getting impression numbers because we are in an impressions game. We're trying to get people to consume content. We're in an intentions game. They're watching our content. We're posting and putting things out there in a lot of different places, and we're placing ads to get eyeballs on a lot of different things, right? At the end of the day, a lot of what we're doing is to build an audience and sell more tickets. So impression numbers are great, but really selling tickets is our number one goal, right? So I'm thinking about this like you're tracking your marketing spend like an investor. You want to take a look at your invoices, what you actually spend, what is actually being charged on your credit card. If there are agency fees, that's got to be rolled in there. So you've got your spend plus your revenue. That's really the foundation of what I'm trying to articulate here to you. The next part of this here is measuring your single game return on investment. And really, this is a piece of that I talked about in that budget episode in episode 135. Your revenue, how much money you made on single game tickets, if that's what you're pushing out there, and your ad spend, which also includes your agency fee. That's it. Like, super simple. You got your agency fee and your ad spend. So if you're spending $50,000 and your agency's taking $5,000, it's still $50 all in one bucket. And if you sold $100,000 in single game tickets, you spent $50 to make $100. Super simple. That's really it. Like, you don't need to do a whole lot more than that. Absolutely, we can get super technical. But if you are just starting at the foundation and you're trying to figure this all out, that's it. Because you want to be able to answer the one question from your boss or your owner. Did we make money? You spent marketing dollars. Did we get a return? And the simple way to do that is to look at your single game buyers. I'm going to introduce to you a new acronym here that will get you thinking about how your marketing is doing specifically for single game buyers. NCAC, NCAC. It stands for New Customer Acquisition Cost. You spent all that time, energy, effort, and resources to acquire a customer last year. You've got them in your email software. They're a return customer. A lot of your email marketing, a lot of your text messaging, if you're doing that. Even you could argue some of your Facebook ads and Instagram ads that you're running are designed to get return customers to come back. But a lot of your marketing budget that you're spending is designed to go get new customers. So NCAC, New Customer Acquisition Cost. This is removing all the attribution drama. You're getting rid of, well, Meta sold this or Display did that. What you are saying is my marketing acquired X number of new buyers at Y price. This is a business metric. It's not platform specific for Meta or Display or Google or any of these different things. It's simply saying, hey, I spent $50,000 to sell $100,000, and out of the $100,000, 80,000 of it was new customers. So I spent 50 to make 80. My new customer acquisition was $80,000, and I could look into how many buyers I've gotten, what have you. But that new customer acquisition cost is really a business metric, a simple one that your GM's going to understand, your external relations director, your revenue person, heck, even your accounting person. They look at this and say, Jeremy, you spent 50, you turned it into 100. Great job. All right, now let's boil it down to the next thing here. I spent 50 to go out to go get new customers, and I made 80 on just new customers. Great. Super simple. Like, that's what we're trying to do here, right? So I'm going to add two other metrics to think through here to keep you from misreading the room here. Average order value. This tells you, AOV tells you if your offer was strong. This is great because you can see bundles, how many people are buying X amount of tickets. The average order is 3 tickets and it's $52. Now you know every time you get a buyer, on average, they're spending with you $52 and they're buying 3.12 tickets or whatever that math is. That's a great metric for you to have internally so you know if I'm getting a new buyer, on average, this is what I'm getting. The second one I would also look at is revenue per buyer. It's a little bit different than average order value. What this tells you is the buyer quality. So the average is $42, but how many of those are higher dollar ones versus how many are just buying your cheap tickets? You can really take those to see, hey, revenue per my buyer, what am I actually getting here? I had X amount of buyers and my revenue is Y. This can actually help you diagnose problems without guessing, because if you know, hey, this is about how much money we make off of each buyer, and each buyer on average orders this amount of dollars of tickets and what have you, really gives you an understanding of quality and quantity all at the same time. There is a time lag here, though, because in the old days, you would place an ad on social media and you would see people buy right then and there, right? Now people are distracted. There's a lot of things going on. So there is a time lag, which is part of the reason why meta ads are not 100% accurate while they're reporting, because you may see the ad today, 2 days later, you see a billboard, and then another 2 or 3 days later, you may see the ad for the giveaway or fireworks or what have you, right? So there is a time lag there, just like I explained there, right? Someone sees the ad on a Monday, talks to their spouse on a Wednesday, they buy the ticket on a Friday, right? But really, if you're making decisions and thinking through how your ads are running, every 48 hours, they're kind of updating and changing on the platforms that you're looking at. So if you're judging your marketing in really 2-day increments or 3-day increments, that's not pretty good. That's like saying, hey, this ice hockey player, he's been on the ice for 5 minutes. I can tell he's not going to be very good. I'm going to pull him off. Or a baseball player who's had 2 at-bats, and then I'm going to pull him off. Like, that's not very helpful. What I would recommend is give it a week. See what's actually happening. Your job is to let the system breathe long enough to learn and convert. So I recommend evaluating your performance weekly, and then you're going to track your return on investments, your ROI, and your new CAC, so your new customer acquisition costs, monthly or by homestand. Because if you do it every 2 days, you're going to drive yourself bonkers. All right, what do you need to stop over-obsessing about? So I'm going to give you permission to stop over-obsessing about a few things. Stop over-obsessing about platform-specific return on ad spend. Meta sold this ticket, so they say, or Display sold this ticket, or TV said they sold this ticket. Like, attribution arguments inside your front office are really going to be a waste of time because it doesn't make sense. People don't buy that way. Think about how you buy. I would prefer you to actually spend your energy and your resources to obsess over real revenue, real spend, what it cost you to acquire new buyers, and whether those buyers came back. Because we all know if we can turn a buyer from one game into multiple games during the season, we've got a better chance to turn them into a mini plan or a season ticket holder than if they just came out one time and didn't come back out for the rest of the year. Those numbers that I just shared, real revenue, real spend, what does it cost to acquire a new customer, a new buyer, and whether those buyers come back, those are the numbers that really drive better decisions for you. So if you're trying to track hundreds of different metrics, like you're trying to boil the ocean here, and that's simply not the best use of your time or your energy, sure, you could get lost in the numbers, but really, you want to look at real revenue. How much money do we have in the bank account, or what the ticketing software says? How much did I actually spend on my advertising? What did it cost for me to acquire a new customer, and whether those customers came back to another game during the season? So let's land this plane. Meta's reporting, and in fact, most platforms, but Meta specifically, the reporting doesn't always match ticketing because the reality is matching isn't perfect. Data gets blocked. Platforms like Meta fill in the gaps with modeled estimates, and that's simply it. They're just estimates. And the piece that I think sometimes we forget about is it takes time for buyers to convert. They may see the ad on Monday, but they may not buy until Friday. So here's the simple play here. The simple way to think about this. Meta as a delivery engine, use your ticketing software really as the scoreboard, and then ROI and that new customer acquisition to measure success, and use average order value and that repeat rate to understand why. And you can do what I explained in episode 135 because it's really all about justifying your marketing budget with confidence because you are tracking reality, not guesses. So if this episode helped you, share it with someone on your team or someone in sports. The fastest way to stop marketing isn't working conversations or have your marketing budget slashed is to get everybody looking at the same scoreboard and understanding what's actually happening with yours. And that's by using the data that's actually flowing into the ticketing software to be the crux, the North Star of everything that you're doing. So until next time, keep working hard, having fun, trying to sell more tickets and grow your fan base. I appreciate you. Until next week.